Hey guys, today we are playing around with poppy flowers out of buttercream. And I thought maybe it would be nice to use a template to get us started. And then we will create some individual flowers on wax paper that can be tossed into the freezer and hardened up. And then we can peel the backing off and place flowers on your potential cakes. So I have here an assortment of piping tips. For the petals, I'm going to use a combination of the standard 104 tip. And this is the standard petal tip used most commonly with flowers. I also have the number 97. That's a little wavy petal ruffle tip. Again, that's the 97. I have a larger number 12, and this is going to be for our buds. The number 10 is going to be for the centers of our flowers. And then I have two teeny tiny number 1s. This is for the stringing effect that is found most commonly in the centers of poppy flowers. So I'm going to start with red. I'm holding my bag at a 45-degree angle, and my fat end of the tip is closest to the center of my poppy flower. And a lot of poppies, there are so many different varieties, but I really love the poppies that have about 8 petals, and they're really, really, really ruffly. Sometimes they have 5 petals. I mean, it varies all over the place, but I'm going to do the super ruffly version, placing my fat end of my tip against the center, and I'm just going to ruffle up and down and back and forth and fill in that space. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. And the next thing I'm going to do is pipe the very center of my poppy using the number 10 tip. And this guy is facing kind of up and away from me. So I'm going to fill in the center right here with a dome. And then I'm going to change over to one of my teeny tiny number 1 tips. And I'm going to give it texture by piping tiny little dots all over the surface. You can actually probably just use a toothpick and pull these out while your buttercream is still damp, yeah. So you can literally just use your tip or toothpick to pull out some of that icing and give it the sensation of texture. The centers are always very hairy. All right, so there is a facsimile of our center. And then the centers usually have these beautiful stamen loops. And I just make that by going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And our next petal is going to come up to this point, so I don't have to worry too much about continuing. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm leaving a little area of red right close to the center, but I'm just piping little loops. And I'm going to do one more set with a brighter purple, just slightly above the first step. And I'm going to go ahead and grab just one more tiny tip, and I'm going to add a slightly brighter shade. Some of these flowers have yellow portions hanging out in here. Sometimes they're pink. But I just want a little bit brighter purple. All right, now back to our petals. My fat tip is down toward the base of my stem. And I'm going to do the same thing from the other side. And there's the first part of our poppy flower. I am going to get one larger tip. This is a number 6 round for this stem. And I created that just by wiggling back and forth and creating the sepals to this flower. One of the things that I love are the buds. So I'm going to use this darkish color to backfill a little oval right in here. And then using my 104 tip again. So there's the little dome for the bud created. And now I'm just going to build a petal there and there. I'm not too concerned about the back because that is going to be where our sepals are. And this little leaf tip is called a 349, and it's the tiniest little leaf tip I could possibly find. But I love it for tiny sepals on the bottoms of buds. And now for buds, I'm going to pipe a green version of this dome here. And I think we'll do this one. There's a little bit of purple blended in with this. This is a number 5 round. I'm just going to blend in the stem with its background by just pulling it a little bit. And then I absolutely love the little caps that are on poppy buds. And same tip, just going to create 4 little lines. There. And last one. So there's our poppy buds. I'm going to take just a moment to flesh out the 2D effect into 3D for this little flower. And I'm going to do that again with a 104 tip and with a little less ruffling. So I'm going to start fat side toward the stem. And I'm going to do this back petal here also. And then this larger petal and the final petal. I still have my stem. This flower is a little bit small, so I'm going to switch to my leaf tip, the itty bitty 349, and pipe in those sepals. So this flower is kind of in the background, that one's kind of in the background. Now we're going to create one solid poppy that we can place here. And by the way, this is a printout on edible image paper. We're going to freeze this later and should be able to peel it right off of the backing. All right, so poppy freehand. I'm going to start by doing the back petals first. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. I'm just kind of irregularly running my tip up and down so I can create some of this ruffling effect. And then I'm going to create another one. I'm going to give it a little bit of space right there. And then that final petal is always the hardest. I think that turned out pretty good. So this poppy is looking directly at us. I'm going to add just a little gap closure here by piping just a little circle. This will ensure that the poppy comes off in one piece instead of like 6 different pieces. Pipe my center straight out at me. And you can see about how tall that is. And then either with a toothpick or with your tip itself, we're going to pull out some of that texture. So that definitely gives it a little hairy effect. I love how this has that little shade of purple blended in as well. If you find that you can't get the texture, add a little bit of sifted powdered sugar to your buttercream. That'll make it a little bit stiffer and easier to pull out. All right, so there's our texture. So I'm going to start with the little loops and the black, almost black purple. You can create little circles, little ovals. They're actually like little loops. All right, we're going to switch to the next color, which is dark purple. And we're going to go just above that line and create another series of loops. And a number 1 tip is crucial for this. Of course, to squeeze from a number 1, you're going to have to use a really well sifted powdered sugar. Eat those. Switching now to my lightest shade of purple. Those. Now, one of the things I love about poppies is that they have little strings that attach from here to here. And since this is our focal poppy, we're going to take time to create those. And all I'm doing is using my number 1 tip to drag that line from the center to the edges. Leave a little bit of space so you can see the red beneath. And I'm going to give it one more round of the darker black loops up here. You can either do this in rounds or you can do little figure 8s. And there we have the beginnings of our poppy. I'm going to put a little something behind it and force this to back up a little bit so we get some dimension. And we're going to put some green in that space so it lifts a little bit. I think I wanted to give it just a little more petal dimension. So I'm going to pipe just a few more petals right in here. That in is still toward the bottom. There we go. Now it's more of a complex poppy instead of a single poppy. Another step toward realism would be adding contrast color right at the petal's edge, and you can pipe that in very carefully, and you can use a flat brush and brush that out into the petal to let it blend a little bit with a tiny 1S, a little smidge of white. And then you can use just about anything. You can use a paintbrush, you can use a toothpick, and I'm just blending that back into that petal a little bit. And this is still soft. I haven't put this in the freezer. All right, now we're going to the freezer. And I'm just doing a little bit of color touch up on my stems as well, just to make it feel the same. And that should be about it. All right, so I'm going to decide where I want to place it. Gently peel the parchment off the back, and hopefully it'll come off mostly clean. If not, put it back in the freezer and let it go a little bit longer. A small amount of green here, and I'm going to go ahead and put larger sepals coming out the back. We won't see the majority of this flower once we've placed the large 3-dimensional one. And there we go, just right inside of that green. The green will hold it down. And make sure it's nice and secure. Backfill with a few additional petals and any additional greenery that you might want. Just a few more petals back here to help cover up the green ball. And I created a baby because it felt a little unbalanced. Now I get to go and play with this edible image. I can place additional flowers on the bottom. I can add additional stems, buds, you name it. And remember, all of this can go into the freezer once we're done. And then once it's had a chance to freeze solid, we can peel the backing off of our edible image really carefully and place the entire design directly onto a quarter sheet cake.